Hey everybody, it's Ricardo Gorski from offplan.one, and in this video we are talking about the best place, area, city in Cyprus to invest in 2026 and 2027. And for that we are going to look at the three most popular cities in Cyprus, and we are going to focus on specifically Paphos, because Paphos in 2025 had a record-breaking year with a total of 18,114 sales throughout the year. And this means Paphos now officially reached the highest annual sales since 2007, right before the global financial crisis. And especially if we look at the year-over-year growth rate, we see that we have two-digit growth rates here on 2024. And if we look at other places, countries, cities across the world, like London, for example, which used to be a very popular place to buy properties, and we see stagnating growth rates and in some cases even declining rates. And now compare this to 15% growth rates in a low-tax jurisdiction with an amazing climate and lifestyle and so many more benefits for people that relocate here, but also people that come here on vacation and want to rent properties on a short-term basis. I think it is pretty clear where smart money would rather invest in. And this is also what official sources confirm. We see here an article by the Cyprus Mail. Cyprus real estate sales jumped 15% and they hit 4.7 billion in 2025, which are official numbers from the Department of Lands and Surveys. And now getting back to the market analysis, as said, we are looking at Limassol and Larnaca specifically, which are the two other very popular cities to invest in. However, there are a few things that you need to know about those cities. I'm living in Cyprus for 7 years now. I've been everywhere, literally every city and village on the map I have seen, and so I know the ins and outs of every single area. And specifically Limassol is very interesting because it is actually the most expensive city to buy. It has a very high entry price. In Limassol it feels like the property prices already hit the ceiling or are very close to it, and they are limited in further growth because everything is so expensive there already. Yes, they have a lot of businesses and international rich people that live there. However, it is unthinkable to raise the rent prices in Limassol even more because a lot of the people that live there will be not able to pay even more in rent. And also you could argue that Limassol is so big that everyone will find something according to their budget. And while this might be true, yes, this also means that the luxury market is oversupplied because there is a high demand of luxury properties. And so while you are paying a premium price for the growth, this growth already happened in the past. So if you would have invested a few years ago, maybe 10, 15 years ago into Limassol, then it's a whole different story because you would take the momentum and the price increase with you. But now, as we are, as said, already at the ceiling, there's not that much growth that you will enjoy over the next few years as compared to Paphos, for example, which is literally just getting started because 5-6 years ago, no one wanted to live in Paphos, whereas now it is the place to be. Anyway, but first we will talk about Larnaca now, and Larnaca has this issue that there is no real momentum. Even at tax.one, where we helped over 500 entrepreneurs and families relocate to Cyprus, most people want to come to Paphos or go to Limassol, but Larnaca, yes, every now and then, but I would say around 10% of the people are actually genuinely interested in living in Larnaca. And that leads to macroeconomics, a low demand, while there's also a relatively high supply. And this means for you as an investor that it will be very hard to get a good ROI just because you are competing with so many other penthouses, apartments, villas, houses on the market, and you are kind of forced to lower the prices so that you will get some kind of occupancy. But if you lower the prices, your ROI is also going down. And so as of today, I confidently argue that Larnaca is not a smart investment. But when it comes to Paphos, I saw the potential a few years ago already. And I remember living in Limassol and saying into the camera, literally in 2020, that I want to move to Paphos because there are so many beautiful places, cheap rental prices, and so much potential. And I'm so happy that this actually turned out to be true because now we have the Germans, we have so many digital nomads here, so many cafes, restaurants popping out like mushrooms around every corner. And this means compared to Limassol and Larnaca, Paphos has a real momentum that is actually going on that you will feel because the The energy is amazing here. Everywhere you go, it is busy, especially now during high season. People are constructing. There are new developments from the private sector, so developers, people building their own houses, apartment complexes, but also from the public sector, from the government, where they are improving the infrastructure, the old town, the harbor, everything is clean. There are people taking care of the city, and it just looks absolutely beautiful. And it is not the same Paphos anymore as 5 years ago, where it was literally a village. If I drive around the old town at night, it is absolutely beautiful. Water fountains, colorful lights, new buildings, and so much more to come. And this leads to an exceptional value proposition because you are investing into the now, which is already working. There is a proof of concept for property owners right now, and you have the opportunistic future, which we are going to discuss in a minute because of the tourism and lifestyle that is going on here in Paphos. And when it comes to the facts, which we will also discuss in a minute, Paphos now officially has the highest annual growth forecast for 2026 and 2027. And so without a doubt, Paphos is the clear leader for capital appreciation and ROI for property investors. This does not mean that the market in Limassol and Larnaca does not work. No, it just means that Paphos is the city where it makes most sense now to buy a property, especially as a new investor. Because at the moment, it doesn't really matter where you are buying. It doesn't really matter what the business plan is. If you have a property in Paphos, it will be rented out and generate money for you. Whereas in Limassol and in Larnaca, because of the competition, the high supply and the relatively moderate demand, you do need to put much more effort into making the investment highly profitable, especially when it comes to short term. Finding a long-term tenant, yeah, you will basically go into a 12, 24-month contract and it will be relatively easy. But when it comes to short term and maximizing ROI, whole different story. And so coming back to the topic, Paphos is where you have unmatched potential on the island, superior growth and prime investment opportunities. Talking about numbers, let's look at a few more facts, and we see that in 2026, Paphos sales growth grew 19% in the first 5 months of the year. And as said, this is the strongest growth on the island. At the same time, Cyprus, island-wide, so all cities together, we have real estate transactions up 34.7% compared to pre-pandemic 2019 levels. This means that even though the pandemic slowed down the growth of Cyprus, the tourism, the demand in general, just as with every other country, the island now recovered way beyond pre-pandemic levels, which is a factor because during the pandemic, people realized that a lot of the jobs can be done from home office. A lot of people became entrepreneurs, self-employed, and they realized, I don't need to stay in Germany, UK, Sweden with no sun, high taxes. I can move elsewhere. I can move to an island where I pay lower taxes. I have a more free lifestyle, more safety for my family while paying less taxes. Why not move to Cyprus? And when these individuals then move here, they either rent, which we see a lot of times for the first 12 to 24 to 36 months. But then in many cases, these individuals are tired of paying rent and they want to own their own property. And so also these people, not just investors, buy properties, which drives up the property prices. And in 2025, this led to the highest transaction total volume of 6.5 billion euros Cyprus-wide, which is an absolute record and so astonishing for a small island like Cyprus. We see here another article by Cyprus Mail. Cyprus real estate market hits record 6.5 billion value in 2025. So without a doubt, that is definitely remarkable. But if we dig a little bit deeper into the real estate market, then we will see that apartment prices specifically are up 9.6% year over year in Q4 2025. That is what the Central Bank of Cyprus reported, and as we see here, we not just see a constant, almost exponential growth since 2019, where there was the pandemic. No, we also see annual changes of 9.6% specifically for residential property prices. And I'm not sure if you currently own properties, where you are residing right now, and what your background story is. However, just go to Google and try to find out the year-over-year growth of any Central European country, and you will see that 9.6% is something you don't see very often. And that also implies that specifically apartments have a high demand, and that leads back to the clientele that is coming here to Cyprus. We have entrepreneurs, digital nomads, young couples, retirees, and people that are interested in a 2-bedroom apartment, which is a different market to villas, because villas, you will rarely find a villa with 2 bedrooms. They start usually at 3 bedrooms, which means then, okay, you have to decide between either an apartment, maybe a penthouse, which is very, very unique and complex. It definitely needs a separate video talking just about penthouses. If you want that, make sure to leave a comment down below. But you have this villa and apartment market, and especially apartments are working very well here in Paphos right now. But now let's look a little bit at who's actually buying in Cyprus and Paphos specifically. And for that, we have foreign investments that are almost the majority, because foreign investors now account for over 40% of all Cyprus property sales across the island, which underlines exactly what we just said, that it is not really the local market anymore that is buying properties here in Cyprus. The home ownership of Cypriots is already very high. It is now the individuals from these other countries that are tired of their home country that are interested in owning a property on a beautiful island like Cyprus. And as we see here, the number of properties bought by non-Cypriots jumped 16% year over year in 2025, and the district proving the most popular with overseas buyers right now is Paphos. It attracted exactly 32% of all foreign purchases last year, 2025, and 17% more than in 2024. So while 32% is the percentage of all foreign purchases last year, we have 68% in Paphos specifically of all the transactions that are made by international buyers. And now cities compared next to each other here. Looking at this analysis, 2025, we see Nicosia, Famagusta, Larnaca, Limassol, and Paphos, and we do see that the gray graph, which is non-EU, is the highest compared to all the other cities, but also the EU sales are the highest in Paphos. So we have a lot of smart money that is investing into Paphos right now. It is the #1 district for foreign buyers, and it attracts the majority of international buyers. Here we have a little map illustration where we see who is buying where. So talking about Paphos, we have Germans definitely, but also surrounding countries next to Germany, like Netherlands is just one example, but also the Scandinavian countries, French people, Polish people specifically. I should have even added the Polish flag here. And by the way, ja też rozumiem po polsku, moja cała rodzina są z Polsce und ich spreche auch Deutsch. Also falls ihr Deutsch sprechen solltet, gerne auf offplan.one das Formular ausfüllen und dann helfen wir euch auch auf Deutsch. This was a little German and Polish because I speak both languages as well. Regardless, we obviously also speak English, as you can hear, and also the British people absolutely love Paphos even before the German wave. I mean, Cyprus used to be a British colony, and there are a lot of British expats that live here in Cyprus, also Paphos, Pea area somewhere over there, and it's a big British, German, Polish community that is going on here on the island. So no matter where you're from, you will definitely find people that speak the same mother language as you. Then the Russian-speaking countries, they heavily invested into Limassol, but this is more like a few years ago, not really that much anymore. Then we have Lebanese and Arab people in general. They love Larnaca for whatever reason. I think they have some marketing campaigns in their language, which is heavily promoting Larnaca. I remember being in Dubai and there was a big banner of Larnaca representing Cyprus. And when it comes to the occupied side, we have Israelis that invest a lot there. But in general, as said, Paphos specifically, we have over 50% of the real estate sales agreements that are being made with buyers from non-Cyprus citizens. And so, long story short, international buyers are dominating the Paphos real estate sector, and they are realizing that it is the place to invest in. And when it comes to the year-over-year growth, again, we see that it is very, very strong. Now, why is all of that? Why is Paphos so strong? And for that, we have to understand the supply and demand ratio a little bit better. And that means if you look at the permits approved by the government, you can know exactly how many properties will be built potentially if the developer doesn't go bankrupt and where. And the current pipeline looks like that. We have only around 1,700 units in Paphos with an approved planning permission that are going to be built over the next few months. But in Limassol it is 4,700. Given that there are already so many existing buildings, and in Nicosia we are talking about over 5,000 with a planning permission that will be built over the next few months and years. Also given that there are already so many units on the market. And so if we compare this to Paphos right now, which literally has no supply whatsoever. Just try to rent something here in Paphos on a long-term basis. You will see that it is extremely hard. It is extremely overpriced right now just because the demand is so high and the supply is so low. And the demand keeps rising while the supply is capped. And even though this is the status quo, there won't be much more properties over the next 2 to 3 years. I mean, the demand, the influx, the net migration of individuals, tourists coming to Paphos is way higher than the new supply of 1,700 units. So this leads to the kinda beautiful market imbalance, at least for property owners, where the Paphos supply is extremely capped and the demand is rising by the entrepreneurs, companies, digital nomads, families, students, retirees, tourists, and so forth that are coming to Paphos. These numbers converted to floor area, which will be built upon, means that Nicosia and Limassol plus minus 900,000 square meters each, while Paphos doesn't even have 250,000 of square meters that will be supplied with new properties. This means there will be a price squeeze, and this trend will continue for a few years, and it will accelerate with certain developments of Paphos and the master plan and the natural growth of the city and its lifestyle and amenities, facilities, new malls, and anything that it offers. As of today, the average house price in Paphos is 710,000 euros for new builds, obviously, and for apartments we are looking at 320,000 euros. That is currently the average 2-bedroom apartment price here in Paphos for an off-plan property that will be finished within the next few months with a payment plan, with a sea view potentially, with an apartment complex, pool, gym, spa, close to the sea, and much, much more. And now it's getting super interesting because, as said, there are a few things that could accelerate the growth of Paphos. And these opportunistic things are, for example, the airport expansion. So Paphos in itself has an airport, which is klein aber fein, as we would say in Germany. It's small, but relatively nice and modern, and there are flights to basically everywhere I want to go. So to Cologne, Frankfurt, for example, which is relevant for me to visit my family, but even to the UAE. So they also have a slot to Abu Dhabi, for example, and then I take a 1-hour taxi to go to Dubai. But anyway, this airport will now be expanded with a budget of 170 million euros, and you can do a lot of things with that amount of money. Next is the new highway that will connect Paphos to beautiful Polis with the Blue Lagoon and all that, and this will definitely improve the overall infrastructure in Paphos, but also the amount of things you can do and places you can visit and how convenient it is to live here in Paphos. Then obviously we have Schengen. Cyprus is working very hard for many years now to enter Schengen, and as it seems it will happen very, very soon, which would then obviously also increase property prices because the PR card will turn into a golden visa, which means that Cyprus will see even more foreign investments. Next, we have one of the most opportunistic things about Paphos, and if this is going to happen, if they just start working with the shovels, the first dig into the hole for the new Pea Marina, then prices around Kisonerga, around the marina, in Paphos in general, will absolutely explode. Investors will see capital appreciation of 20% and more within a few days, and also the general influencer marketing, especially the German scene here, is very, very strong. The biggest influencers and rappers of Germany are living in literally Paphos. It is insane to me to see rappers that I used to listen to when I lived in Germany, which were the superstars, which are the superstars, and now I literally walk past them in the mall. We're talking about Samra, Capital Bra, Luciano, Flair living in Limassol, Farid Bang was here in Paphos 2 days ago. So those are things that if you're a German, you're just like, wait, that's pretty cool for a small city like Paphos. And obviously when these people are here, they do indirect marketing, just as the fitness scene. There are a lot of big names from the fitness industry here in Paphos located. They do a lot of promotion and marketing for Cyprus. Effectively, I'm doing the same, non-sponsored by the government. Of course, I do everything myself, build my own business around relocation and all that. But I also this topic for another video. If you're interested, make sure to subscribe. And now, even though all those things that I just mentioned are true, Paphos still has the lowest entry prices from all the coastal cities. Why is that? Because we are still so early. If you invest right now, you will still take advantage of the first mover advantage, so to say, because prices are still very, very low. Now, why smart money is moving to Paphos now? We have the asymmetric bet, where you buy properties at today's prices, but it is backed by real demand and a capped supply. The downside is protected by fundamentals. It is just not possible to have a property in Paphos right now and not finding a tenant. So you literally have no downside, given that there is no black swan event, which you always have to consider as an entrepreneur. So there are no riskless investments, just as a side note. But if we compare the upside now, which is driven by the opportunistic catalysts, it's a no-brainer to invest into Paphos right now. And at the same time, you will have cash flow from day one. If you buy off-plan, you have payment plans, meaning you're not going to give up your liquidity. But if you find off-plan properties that are very close to being finished, let's say 4 to 5 months from construction, then you're going to buy the property, and until it's going to be finished in a few months from now, you just finish all the sales agreements, lawyer things, this and that, and you're going to earn rental income while you're waiting for the natural capital appreciation of your properties. And so now 2 more things, and that is that the PR is included for non-EU citizens that buy off-plan properties from Cyprus developers for a price of at least 300,000 euros plus VAT, which unlocks the Cyprus permanent residency for the investor and his or her family, which is a EU foothold that comes free with the investment, so to say. And a lot of British individuals actually want to live here in Cyprus. They don't just want to invest, they want to relocate here. And for these individuals, it's great to have the Cyprus PR card where they can stay here and be treated as any EU citizen. And if Cyprus then enters the Schengen area, which will allow the PR card holders to also enter certain other countries within the EU, this is going to attract a lot of offshore investors, Chinese, Russian-speaking investors, this and that, who currently buy golden visas in countries like, let's say, Greece, but also a few other options. However, the golden visas there, which will have the same advantages as the Cyprus golden visa, are priced much, much higher than 300,000 euros. We are talking about 500,000 euros and more, depending on the location in Greece, for example. But this means that the Cyprus PR, and thus the property that comes with it, will go up in price. And so it is very important to buy before the announcement that Cyprus will officially enter Schengen now, because a lot of people actually mock Cyprus for trying to enter Schengen, but they keep delaying it. But what if it actually happens? Then property prices will increase 10-20% and you're too late. Now is the time to invest. Now it is time to buy a property close to the Pea Marina, not if they officially confirm it and start digging. Then it will be too late and you will regret not investing now. And this is what I mean when I talk about the best case scenarios here in Paphos, with all the upcoming things, the master plan of the city, which I'm also going to discuss in a future video. This would make this video way too long. In this video, I just wanted to discuss why I think that Paphos is the best city to invest in Cyprus right now. And if you're interested in buying a property here in Cyprus, make sure to reach out to us by filling out the form on offplan.one, and we will get back to you very soon.